Hey gang, how's it going? This is Chad Castleberry, and you're watching Firechild Videos After Effects Tutorials. Before we get started into this effect today, we all know what it is. We read the description. A quick disclaimer: this is probably not the best way of making this effect. This is more of just a quicker way of making the hologram effect. If you look around the internet, there are much more in-depth tutorials on how to make the effect. I'm not trying to pretend to be the best or try to show you that this is the best way of making it, because it's not. There's other effects that take much longer to make, much more detail involved. And if you've got a project where you just need one hologram, then that's the way to go. And at the end of this tutorial, I'll show you where to find at least one good tutorial on this. This one is designed more for the average user, or for those of you who are making, say, a fan film, and you're going to have several holograms throughout the course of the film, and instead of having to make them step by step every time you want to make someone into a hologram, this tutorial is designed to teach you how to make a hologram preset to where you can save it, and each time you need to make the hologram, just slap the preset on, bam, you're done, you're going. It is just to make things a little bit quicker. So again, this is not the best, so before the comments start floating in and all the hate mail starts floating in that this effect isn't the best, there's better people out there, blah, 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 blah. I'm not pretending to be the best. I'm just showing you a quick way of doing it that'll maybe make your workflow move a little bit faster. So, that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at what we're going to be creating here. Not a bad effect. I may have thrown you off thinking, oh great, this one's going to suck. But no, it's actually a pretty cool effect. It's pretty solid. It looks good. And as you can see, there's some good possibilities for it. So let's go ahead and get started by what I've got in my project file here is I've got a pre-keyed QuickTime file. It was shot in front of a green screen. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this pre-keyed keyed man footage, and we're going to click it and drag it into the Create New Comp button, which is right here. And as you can see right off the bat, this is not a very clean key at all. In fact, if I was keying this for any other purpose other than a hologram, I would be fired for this effect because it's not a clean key at all. There are some jagged edges all over the place, and it's a horrible key. But the thing you need to understand when you're making a hologram, you don't need a perfect key. In fact, having these jagged edges here on this key actually helps the effect, helps sell the hologram effect, because you're going to get some little hot spots around the edges when we apply all the effects to it, and it'll actually lend itself to creating a good hologram effect. So just keep that in mind when you're keying out footage. Know what you're going to use it for down the road. If you're keying it out for the purpose of a hologram, you don't need to spend an hour, trying to get a perfect key. Go ahead and back up here. The first thing we want to do is we don't need the color information. All we really need, all we really need is just the image. So what we're going to do is we're going to tint it first of all. We'll go Effect, Color Correction, and it's off your screen because of the screen capture, but you got to use, well, the easiest one is Tritone. It's the very last one on the list. You can't see it on your screen capture. Trust me, if you're following along in After Effects, you'll see it. It's there. Tritone. And what that does is give you highlights, midtones, and shadows to where you can give it the color you want. I'm going to go ahead and click on the midtones color, and we're going to give it, pick whatever color you want, but I'm going to go with kind of a bluish tint. So now we have, a bluish looking guy. Cool. Next thing we need to do is we need to go in and we need to create those, back over here, we need to create those scan lines. Yeah. Let me create those scan lines that are going across, as you can see. So, easy enough. We'll go Effect, Generate, Grid. Effect, and all that did was create a basic grid. Our guy's gone. Can't see him at all, but we can fix that. First thing, let's bring him back by going to Blending Mode right here at the bottom of the grid effect and changing it from None to Stencil Alpha. And now we can kind of see the outline of him, even though it looks horrible. First thing we need to do, let's go ahead and clean it up by changing size from corner point to width and height sliders. And that'll make it easier for us to space everything out. Now, what we need for this is we just need the horizontal stripes. We don't need the vertical lines at all. So what we can do is crank up the width. If you click on it, you can import a number to about 1,000. And you still have one little line right there. And we want to get rid of that. So we'll move the anchor point off the edge of the screen down here. So there, now all you can see, all that's visible is the horizontal lines. The vertical lines are still there. They're just spaced so far apart that they're off our screen, so we don't see them. Now the height, we can drop that down to about, I guess, 3. And, okay, now our grid is completely gone, but that's because the border is too big. So we'll put that to about 1.5. And that should bring our grid back. So now we have our scan lines. Pretty cool. Let's fit that. No, actually, let's bring that up a little bit. Make a little bit of space here. Let's see what's going on. Okay. I'm actually going to change my background color. You just go composition, background color. So instead of seeing black in the background, a light gray. It's just to help us work a little bit better and see the image a little better. Okay, so we've got our blue coloring. We've got our grid, which we'll call this scan line 1. Or, you know what, make it easier, let's call it small scan lines. And I'm going to call this color, correct? Color, let's call it color. Okay, so we've got our color, we've got our small scan lines. The next thing is we need, go back into this one, if you see we've got this kind of flashing large scan line that scans from top to bottom as it goes across the image. Kind of like an old television set. If you pointed a video camera at an old television set, you would get that scan line effect. And that's what we need to create for ours. Because for some reason, even in a vast technological future, things aren't perfect. Let's just delete that one, and we'll take our small scan lines and hit Control D, D for dog, or duplicate. So Control D, and that duplicates our layer, and we can rename it large scan line. And now we have our small and our large. Now, we got to tweak the large ones so that it's a little more visible. So what we can do is increase the height and increase the border. And we'll change this from stencil alpha to overlay. And it's really just a matter of tweaking with it, playing with it, and getting something we like. Increase the size here more. Increase the border some more, just so we get these hot spots right here, and that's what we want. You can invert the grid and make it a dark spot or a hot spot, either way. I'm going to go, let's increase it quite a bit, and then we'll increase the border. This is just playing around with it for personal preferences, but we want basically a large scan bar. Now, let's animate that scan bar. To do that, at the first frame of our composition, we're going to click on the stopwatch for our anchor point in our large scan lines. And then we'll go forward about, actually we can go all the way to the end of the composition, and then just grab the Y, this is X, and this is Y. Grab the Y, and we'll just tweak it, and it floats down the image. And we'll get a couple bars going through there before we stop. Maybe 3, about right there. All personal preference. So now if we RAM preview it, you'll see we've got this hot spot scan line moving from top to bottom of our image, which is saved for another tutorial. So we've got our scan line moving down, but it's pretty static. It's just a white bar or a light colored bar moving down. And we kind of want it to flash a little bit, kind of like it's a projector image. So easy way to do that is to go to the first frame of your composition and click the stopwatch for opacity under your large scan lines. And we're going to knock that down to about 65%. And then we're going to go down maybe 3 frames, 1, 2, 3, and we'll set it up to 100. And then we'll go down 3 more frames, 1, 2, 3, and we'll set it back down to 65. So if we hit U on our keyboard, we can make some room here. We can see everything with keyframes so far. And under opacity, you can see it goes from 0 to 100, and back, from 65 to 100, and back down to 65%. Now we want that flash to repeat throughout the entire composition to give it a flicker. Now you can go through and keyframe every 3 frames, 65, 100, 65, 100, or you can use an expression. Now I know when I say expression, a lot of people cringe and like, oh, I hate that hacking stuff, as a few of my ADD friends put it, hacking. But let me tell you, it makes things go quicker, and some of these expressions are pretty simple. I would say as you're going through tutorials and learning things, and you come across someone who's using an expression, write that expression down, write what it does, and use it, because expressions make things quicker, easier, faster, and keep you moving. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to use an expression for opacity. I'm going to hold down the Alt button, and I'm going to click on the opacity stopwatch. And then in the box that pulls up, I'm just going to put a quick expression. I'm going to put loop out with a capital O, type equals quotes, cycle, close quote, close parentheses, and enter. So what that's going to do, it's going to take these 3 values and just loop them over and over and over and over and over and over and over through the course of the composition, so that now you only had to create 3 keyframes. You didn't have to go through your entire thing. And this is only like 4 seconds long. Imagine if your hologram that you're doing was 10 minutes long. This whole long hologram, but just imagine every 3 frames for 10 minutes. That would take you forever. This makes it a little bit quicker. So now we can do a RAM preview again, and you'll see that our scan line is now pulsating, but only slightly. The cool thing is that if we want a more dramatic flicker, instead of having to change 10 minutes worth of keyframes, all you got to do is change the first and third keyframe that were set at 6% to an even lower number, and then the flicker will be. As you see, we got a flicker now, which is cool. But let me show you what I was talking about. Bring that back up. We can go to our first keyframe here. J and K. K goes to your next keyframe. J goes to your previous keyframe. That'll help you bounce back and forth through it. Okay, at our first keyframe, which we're at 65, what I'll do is I'll change that down to 45. And then K, K, and I'll change the last one down to 45. And now, this expression took that into account, and it's going to loop from 45 to 100 back to 45 through the entire composition, making a more visible, more impressive flicker, or at least a more dramatic flicker. As you can see there, I'm just going to do 1 second. So now we have our flicker. And of course, if you want the scan lines to be larger or smaller, all you have to do is come in here and tweak your border, the height in between them, tweak it to your liking and make something that you like. Okay, onward. The next thing we need, let's zoom out here. Next thing we need is a hologram should have a glow to it, right? So, easy enough, effect, stylize, glow, right there. And right off the bat, not too bad, but, not fantastic either. What we can do is go ahead and change the threshold to where we just get the hot spots, and maybe bring up the intensity. And if we bring the glow effect above our scan lines, it'll cause the entire thing to glow before the scan lines are added. So maybe in between our large, excuse me. Another interesting side note is effects, they render in the order they're placed in the timeline. So if I put the glow below, it's going to render, the large scan line, which is a little brighter, and it's using the brightness values of that large scan line to determine the glow, because the glow is below it. So it renders the large scan lines, and then it applies the glow. So if we put it above it, now it's taking, the color of the small scan lines, then it's applying a glow, and then it's giving us that brighter hotspot, which is, depending on what you want, put it in any order that makes sense to you. To me, this just makes sense to me. So if you want just a basic hologram like that, then you're done, render it out, put a background behind it, and you're good to go. However, even in a galaxy far, far away, for some reason, reception is just poor sometimes. And what we can do is simulate that poor SORP. What am I thinking? Wow. All right, we'll go to our Effects and Presets palette, which, by the way, if you're new to After Effects, you can manually select them through the list, or if you know the name of the effect you're looking for, you can just type it in here, and there it is. So let's make things a little bit easier. We'll click that and drag it on, and that's nothing close to what we want. What we want is we want to create this little vertical noise where the image is kind of breaking up. So we can do that by changing first, go through the wave warp effect, change wave type from sine to noise, and then we need to change the direction because right now it's going up and down. We can change it from 90 to 0, and now it's going horizontally, which is exactly what we want. And we'll change the height down to about, well, I guess we'll change the width down to about 10, and we'll change the height, I don't know, 2, maybe a little bit more. We're actually going to end up keyframing this one. Okay, so we're going to start off with about 3, just a little bit of noise, and it's already basically animated. But what we can do is, as the video plays, you have a couple of options. Let me just do a quick RAM preview, because with the wave height at 3 right there, we've got a little bit of noise that carries on through the whole composition. Just doing a quick one. As you can see, at the edges, we've got a little bit of distortion there. But as it's playing through, you get some bad spots. Your bars drop from 5 to 2, and it breaks up a little bit. We can add that in by all we have to do is keyframe the wave height. So what we can do is wherever we want a little extra distortion, we'll put our cursor there. I'm going to go at about 1.5 seconds, and then click on the stopwatch for wave height. And if we hit U, we can bring up our keyframe, which here's wave warp, wave height. There's a keyframe we just created. We can go down a few frames, and we can pick it up, however high we want it, about 25, I guess. Depends on how much you want it to fluctuate. Go forward a few more keyframes, and drop it back down to 3. Now, something like that. And then, yeah, see, that's looking pretty good. And see what I was saying in the beginning, how the bad key is almost adding to the hologram effect? It's almost lending it to the fact that it is a hologram because of the rough edges. So, see, I wasn't lying, now was I? Take a little space. So, really, that's all there is to it. You've got a cool hologram effect. All you have to do at this point is put your background in, which I just used. It's one of Vista's sample images I just used for effect. What we can do here is, this isn't really part of the tutorial, I'm just for the sake of clarity. Put a background in, hit render, you're done. I mean, that's really all there is to it. You can add one more effect. We can add an exposure. And individual channels. Boost the blue a little bit if you wanted to. Boost the blue exposure. So then, maybe offset. Just to get something you're really happy with. 99% of After Effects is just playing around with the effects and finding something you like. So basically, just add a little, just play around with it, have some fun. The exposure control is not essential to the effect, but I mean, there you go. There's a quick and dirty hologram effect, and instead of having multiple layers with different transfer modes and things like that, as you'll find in other tutorials, you've got in one effects control. And what you can do is effect or animation, save animation preset, and it should be in the right folder under user presets. And then you can just label it, which I already labeled it Hollow Man, and then save it. And then when you want to come back later, you drop your footage you want to key to a new composition, and then just type in the name of your effect, which might type mine Hollow Man. Use a preset, drag it on, it applies the effects, bam, there it is. Now, this is actually one I created before, but so it's a little more bluish. But there you go. Quick, easy hologram effect. Even all your keyframes are saved. Keyframes, expressions, everything's saved. So if you have 4, 5, 6 different people you want a hologram of, instead of having to create them one by one, you create it once, save it as a preset, you're good to go. And true to my word, at the beginning of this tutorial, I told you that I would show you at least one other. I'll show you this one. If you go to allbetsareoff.com, there is a Aaron Rabinowitz, who is pretty much an After Effects genius. The guy's a guru. What can I say? A pioneer in the field. But he's got, over 100 tutorials, I think. And if you scroll down through his tutorials, you will find one labeled Creating a Hologram Look. And this is a really cool, effect. He goes much more into detail than I do. He makes